Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Samslo33 here, and welcome to the Pokemon TCG Show Mix Up. Dang it, I lost my Groudon EX. Whatever. Not like I use it anymore. But anyway, today's episode, we're going to be talking about the returning decks from Heart Gold Soul Silver on. You know, those decks that were good back then and, are still great now. There's all these new decks I've been talking about, like Garchomp and Hydreigon and Rayquaza EX, but now let's get back to some old school stuff. So yeah, this came. I'm sorry I didn't get this out before Battle Roads. It could have helped some of you players to get a little more, see what decks, at least in my opinion, I think are still viable out of the old ones. So I've got a lot of decks to talk about. I have 6 decks I want to talk about. So let's get to those right away. All right, so we've got 6 decks to talk about today. Now, I'm probably just going to kind of speed through these, tell you the bare basics, and give brief descriptions on the deck lists and whatnot. But I might go off in a few tangents a couple times. So of course, the first deck we're going to look at is the one, the only, Eelektrik. Eelektrik is just such a good deck. It will basically always be in the top tier, if not very slightly below that, unless there's just some kind of huge boost up in power that everything is terrible. So, yeah. Let's start off with some of the attackers that go well in Eels. Of course, the main one is Raikou EX. With there being less Junk Arm, meaning less Catcher, the sniping is very effective. It also is very effective when it does the Sky Bridge Retreat thing it used to do. So, of course, Raikou, very good card. Registeel, of course, is one of my favorites. It can KO a bunch of Altarias and Eels and things that evolve all at the same time. And the nice thing about Registeel, as opposed to, say, like Raikou or something, is that they can't set up while you're sniping them, because their bench is already full with all these things that you're killing, and on probably some attackers and whatnot. So if you snipe things with Raikou, you just hit the Eels one by one, they can start setting up that again. But if you use Registeel and hit all 3 at the same time, and then kill them all at once, then that's it. They're just kind of done from there, I guess. It's just very effective. Really love Registeel. Great Pokemon. Mewtwo, it's Mewtwo, and it's good in Eels, blah blah blah. Zekrom EX. It KOs both Garchomp and Hydreigon. It's mostly needed for Hydreigon because Garchomp's just a good matchup no matter what, and it's just not that great. Tornadus EX, of course, Donk's much better than the Rayquaza Secret Rare. Very good at that if you have a Sky Arrow and DCE. And of course, the weakness is very bad since Eels will be very popular, but it is a very low maintenance attacker. It is very good against Garbodor since it one-hit KOs it as long as it's not having a giant cape, and you can set it up in just 2 turns. So I think Tornadus is definitely a little better than people have been giving it credit for. Thundurus is still a very good starter, and without Junk Arm, it's harder to discard those lightning energies early on, so this can get a lot of them on the field, discard them all. Then it can also soften up some things for Registeel to KO, or for Zekrom EX to dispose of with its Strong Bolt or whatever. And of course, there's the regular Zekrom, the big, the bad, and the one and only. He's been around for so long, and he's just still very good. He's mainly good for just the doing damage type of Pokemon. It is very fragile without EVLI everything and KO at 1 hit except for very limited Garchomp or something. And 120 damage is just not very great. So I'm not sure if this is a great Pokemon anymore, especially since plus power is losing playability, but it's still just good for, again, doing damage. Then there's Bouffalant from Dragon's Exalted. It's much bulkier against EXs than Zekrom in that kind of fashion of just the doing damage type of thing. But of course it's very bad against everything that's not an EX or a thing that evolves like Dynamos and Gibbles, whatever. Then there's the Rayquaza Secret Rare. You may not be able to run Shred if you're just doing regular Eels without fire, but it can still donk against Garchomp, Hydreigon, and Dynamos and all this stuff. And it also donks easier than something like Tornadus. You don't need 2 cards of both, only running maximum of 4 of each. Rayquaza, you only need 1 of something you have like 9 of. Now let's go on to the deck list. Here's the list. Just look at it if you wanna take a look at it quick, because I'm not gonna stay here for too long. Now the only thing I want to discuss is the Zekrom EX / Registeel EX slot. Either of them are very good. I can't really decide between them. Of course, they're both very good against Garchomp. Zekrom EX is definitely better against the Hydreigon matchup, and Registeel is much better against Eelektrik matchup. So I really can't decide. I'd probably go with Registeel. But without it, your Darkrai Hydreigon matchup is just not very good at all. Yeah, I think that's all I'm going to talk about for the deck list. Everything else is pretty basic and understandable, especially since it's Eels. So, to wrap up this part of the video, Eels should definitely be one of our best decks. It has the answer to most everything. There really isn't much it can't handle. If not this version, then the Rayquaza version. Both of them are very good in their own right. It will most likely be played during Battle Roads and Regionals a lot. In fact, it has been played a lot during Battle Roads, just because people know how to play it and it's good, and you know, it has everything. Everything. Next is a Speed Darkrai, or Darkrai without Hydreigon, I guess. It was definitely our best deck in the last format by far. Dominated top 4 at Worlds, having all 4 spots. Had top 7, top 8. It had 7 spots in top 8. It had 10 spots in top 16. It's just so good, and I hate it so much. But it's going to be around. There's no question about that, because he's Darkrai. So, of course, you can't just run Darkrai with just Darkrai, right? Sort of, you can. But some other Pokemon that go along with him. There is Sableye, which is much better right now without Junk Arm. And, of course, you can add Hammers and be a little more cautious with your items, run more one-offs and on-demand items and stuff like that. It can also make it sort of a 7-prize game, if you know how that works, basically. Since they have to KO 3 EXs to get 6 prizes, and if you only KO 1 Sableye, then they have to get 7 prizes, and they have to kill 2 Sableye in order to make it worth killing that Sableye. Which, of course, makes them waste catchers, which is just kind of complicated and hard to explain, right now, at least. Mewtwo, because, you know, 2 good cards that have absolutely no synergy together means good deck, right? Yeah, it does. Terrakion, because, you know, why not? He's Terrakion. Tornado X, of course, is for countering fighting Pokemon. But what's this? Another fighting counter? Well, it sucks, it's Honchkrow. This actually somehow showed up in Battle Roads in a Darkrai Mewtwo list, and I have no clue how, and I have no clue how it works or what attack it uses. It does have a fighting resistance, and it's not an EX, so it's not as bad against Eels, which is everywhere. So, I don't know, the Honchkrow. He's Honchkrow. So let's take a look at the deck list we have here. Right off the bat, Energy Switch is something that definitely pops out like, what? Only Entei runs that. But since Shaman Unleashed is gone, it can set up things a lot faster, like Terrakion in 1 turn out of nowhere, and everything else quicker. And with Sableye, you can just keep energy switching everywhere. You don't have to worry about running out of them. It can also help with Darkrai just be able to use energy switch, and that's a free retreat for everything. So energy switch, I just really like this card. I've tested with it, and it's a very nice card indeed. Definitely try it out. Max Potion, since you have energy switch, the drawback is much less severe. Running 2 different types of tools may seem kind of weird, but that's just because they're both really amazing and they both have their really great perks. And since you're on Tool Scrapper, that can help when you want to swap out the tools when you need to do that. And Sableye can get back the scrapped tools as well. I really can't decide between Eviolite and Dark Claw, so it's up to you. You might want to spend the Dark Claw on some other spots, just because matchup that it's good in, you're usually already good against that matchup. To wrap things up with this deck, no Junk Arm means it's much less powerful, but it's still one of the best speed decks right now, and it has almost as much space as Entei, which of course it has the most space right now. And it also has a way better attacker and support Pokemon in Sableye, so I definitely see this deck doing well during Battle Roads and Regionals. Now for the Terrakion decks and fighting decks and whatnot, people seem to be underestimating Terrakion for some reason, thinking he's kind of going to be less played, which in a way is actually kind of good for him, because people will start tagging for him less. And the 2 top decks still have huge weaknesses to this card, so I guess they're just thinking they won't be teched into everything, but on its own, it's still definitely going to be a really great deck. And let's look at the attackers that you can use. Terrakion, of course, exchanges prizes with EX as well, and it's also very bulky and hard to KO, especially with Eviolite. Terrakion EX, of course, gives you energy acceleration, and if you run it, it means you can rely less on EXP share. Since Tool Scrapper can make EXP share less playable, Terrakion EX is nice to set up some Terrakions, which can retaliate after your Terrakion EX gets KO'd. Mewtwo, it's Mewtwo. Groudon EX, it hits very hard. It's definitely the hardest hitter for fighting decks. And the 120 damage actually kind of helps right now, because of, Garchomp, Empoleon, Dragon, and those things. That could actually do something, unlike last format where 120 was not even helpful at all, especially since you had to put the 20 damage on them already. And you can also add Registeel if you already have the double colorless version or the troll version or whatever, if that still exists, to spread the things where you need, and then use Groudon to pick off those things. So, I don't know, I've always liked Groudon, well, until I actually played the deck. So, maybe he can actually be pretty playable, now that 120 damage is actually a number that's good. And then, of course, there's Landorus. He hits early, he's the fastest hitter in the deck that doesn't use double colorless energy. And you can up spread if you attack with enough to help with Groudon. And right now, fighting decks don't have too fast attackers. He's not that fast, but 80 on turn 2, that's actually pretty good. And the last one is Stunfisk from Dragon Exalted. Of course, this kind of works like Sawk, but he's about 1,000 times better than Sawk. He's still pretty bad. You can donk things like Tynose because of the fighting weakness. And the early spread can also help with Groudon EX. And of course, Rumble can be very devastating against certain decks, especially Darkrai Dragon, since they don't run Switch. So Stunfisk, you could be a fast attack for the deck. I'm not really sure how well it works, but I don't know, it definitely is a nice idea. And now for the deck list itself, I want to take a quick scan to see what it looks like. Energy Switch, of course I added this one again just because I really love it. It helps for Surprise Retaliates. If you don't have all the energy necessary to get the Retaliate off, you can just Energy Switch it on. And you can also get X-Balls out of nowhere. And speaking of energy, the high energy count is because Pump Up Smash getting 2 energy. With just like 12 or 13 energy, that's pretty difficult to get 2 energy in your hand to Pump Up Smash, but with 15 energy, you should definitely have 1 or 2 in your hand at basically all times. So drop up Terrakion. Deck is kind of easy to counter. Things like Shame the X just wreak havoc on the deck, and there's nothing much you can do about cards like that. But with a basically unstoppable 90 damage a turn, it is very effective, and it has a lot of room for cards. So if Eelektrik and Hydreigon keep being the popular decks that they still are, this deck could definitely see some playability. So for our fourth deck, let's look at Empoleon. Empoleon, the draw support really helps a lot in this format, and there are a lot of really good support Pokemon and other things to help fill the bench, so let's take a look at some of the things Empoleon works well with. Terrakion, of course, the old-fashioned one, counters the lightning Pokemon. You can attach an EXP share to it, and then once your Empoleon gets knocked out, you should be able to get the EXP share energy onto it and then attach Fighting and Retaliate. And it's also blend compatible, so you don't have to waste too many spots, including those Fighting energy, just so it blends. Roserade, first of all, helps you fill the bench a lot, and second of all, it gets the cards you need very easily. It makes turn 2 Empoleon very, very likely. Of course, when you use a level ball, you have a Roselia on the bench for a turn that can basically turn into anything, but you have to be rational for when you use your Roserades, because you only have around 3 or so, unless you run the Evolution Sprays. So if you use them just for trivial luxury things, then it's not going to be the best idea, but when you use them at the right time, it can really help you out of a pinch. Aerodactyl adds damage to your very inconsistent damage output, because Empoleon does anywhere from 80 to 120 damage most of the time, and Aerodactyl fills up the bench a lot, getting a lot of them out is not too hard, and it's very useful. And if you do run Aerodactyl, you might want to consider running Virizion over Emolga, because you can't use Emolga to get Aerodactyls out, and if you get too many Piplups out with Emolga, then you won't have enough space to get 2 or 3 Aerodactyls out, so Virizion would probably be a good one to try when you're running an Aerodactyl. So now let's take a look at the deck list skeleton, I guess you'd call it, that I provided here. I have both Giant Cape and Max Potion, because 140 is not that hard to KO. Garchomp, Hydreigon, Darkrai, Weirdness, Zekrom, a lot of things can KO it in one hit, and Giant Cape puts it just out of range of that. And with Max Potion and Giant Cape, it just creates this huge, giant Pokemon that's so difficult to KO, and taking so long to KO a simple Stage 2 non-EX Pokemon could definitely put you ahead on the prize race. And as you can see, I only run 9 supporters and no random receiver. That's because I found that Empoleon does seem to work fine without that many draw supporters, just with those 9 that was in the Roserade version, but I'm sure you can include a few more supporters with the other versions as well. So if you don't get either a Empoleon or a supporter, you could be stranded for a couple turns, but I don't think it should be a problem. It's pretty rare that that does actually happen. As you can see, I have 8 open spots. That should be enough to include your 3 Feline of Roserade, or Terrakion with the XP shares, or Aerodactyl and all his weird utensils he needs to use. So the deck does definitely have a lot of space in it. So to wrap things up here, Empoleon doesn't have that much power. It usually only 2-hit KOs things, and in very rare cases 3-hit KOs things. But it is very easy to set up and has room for a lot of cards. And the side Pokemon can definitely help out in a lot of situations. Just finding out which one is the right one. That should definitely make Empoleon a very good deck choice. Alright, so now let's look at Accelgor. Now Accelgor, of course, was very successful last format, but it does lose Vileplume, but everything else loses Junk Arm, so it's kind of a trade-off. Not exactly sure which one's worse, but Accelgor is still definitely one of the best locking options we have right now. Vanillix, you can't really do much with it. I mean, Double Freeze is nice and all, but there's not really much you can add to that. Accelgor, there's so many options, so let's look at a lot of those options we have right now. Gothitail would definitely be your first choice, since send it up after deck and cover to item lock is definitely the best way to replicate the old version, but of course, the Gothitail definitely does have some dead weight to it. But it's probably the best choice for a side Pokemon you have right now. Mew EX, of course, works just like the Prime version does. It also is very good against Mewtwo EX, which kind of covers Gothitail's psychic weakness, and since you run DCE already, it's not that big a problem, Mewtwo. Venusaur could be a helpful one, since it searches out Pokemon, since you have to send them back in the deck. Getting them back with Venusaur could be helpful. And then there's Musharna, probably the best draw ability we have right now. It helps you draw double Colorless Energy when you need them. And then finally there's of course Chandelure, which you send it back to deck and cover to Curse Shadow to continue the lock. But of course it means that you can't use Gothitail then. But of course continuing that lock is very useful. I guess the choice is whether you want to stop them from getting out of the Paralysis lock or stop them getting out of the item lock. They definitely have both their perks, but I'd say Gothitail is probably the better choice here. Here's a deck list. This is probably one of the most awkward deck lists I have for you. I have not tested this deck, and I just wanted to provide a deck list to see how much room it has and such, and it seems a little weird looking. As you can see, I have Pokeball, because all the search cards in the format suck, and I'm already running 4 Vulture Balls, so that's what Pokeballs for. Tool Scrapper helps a lot against the Garbodor matchup. It can also help with getting the magic number of continuing the Paralysis lock if they're using like Eviolite or something. And if you want to try out something like Venusaur or Musharna in the deck, for Venusaur you could probably take out a Level Ball and the Pokeballs for a 202 line. Since a lot of things are covering up your bench already, you might not be able to fit 2 Venusaurs or a lot of whatever. So I think a 2-2 line should suffice, especially since you have 4 Rare Candy already. And for Musharna, I guess you could take out the Pokeballs and a Bianca for a 2-2 line. So, drop it up here. Deck list seems a little awkward, but with the right combination of Pokemon, the right amount of all the different components, it could be a very disruptive deck. And it probably is the best Paralysis lock right now. I mean, Vanillix really be that much better. And now for the last deck list of the day, and that is Entei. It still has all the space it had, but it does lose a few healing cards like Moo Milk and Life from Herb and Junk Arm to reuse those, so all you have is Potion and Max Potion. And the weakness does matter now, since Empoleon is relative nowadays, but of course I still think it could be a decent deck, probably the lowest tier, but it's still a pretty good deck, I think. So here's the deck list that I have here. The Reshiram that I added is in case you run into Sigilyphs or Bouffalants, and I think the rest of it is pretty self-explanatory. So I guess that's it for Entei. I guess to wrap it up here, not sure if the deck's viable. There are things that do more than 90 damage now, so the healing isn't as disruptive as it used to be, and EXs aren't as popular, but since Eelektrik and Hydreigon are the most popular decks, those two do use EXs. Entei, I don't think it's as good as it used to be, but it does have a few nice advantages that some other decks don't have, like the lots of space that it has, and all the healing and disruption that you can fit into the deck. And that does it today's episode. Where'd this come from? That was weird. Okay, but anyway, that does it for today's episode. So yeah, those are the returning decks. I definitely think some of these are going to be seen for Battle Roads. You should definitely test against all these decks because, you know, it's a new format. People aren't quite sure what to be playing, so they're trying at everything.
And if you see me in the Pennsylvania and Delaware area with this thing on, then you know it's me. Please be sure to say hi because, you know, you guys are awesome and I'd love to meet some of you guys. So yeah, my next Battle Road starts tomorrow, at least when you're watching this. So I'm going to be very excited for that. I'm probably not going to do like a report each week like I did for the spring ones, but I'm probably just going to do like one report at the end of the month of all the, or at least the most interesting matches and tournaments that I did. So, thanks for watching, and see you guys next time where I talk about Ho-Oh. Later.